America's job market is collapsing right before our eyes, and the numbers are terrifying. In 2025, unemployment has ripped past 6% nationwide, shoving more than 10 million Americans onto the sidelines. Over 420,000 layoffs have already been filed this year through WARN notices, and it's only getting worse. Tech giants are erasing entire divisions. Retail chains are closing hundreds of stores. Factories that once paid $30 an hour are shutting their gates forever. Families are being crushed under $5.25 gas, $2,000 rents, and $350 grocery bills, while unemployment checks barely scratch the surface at $500 a week. This isn't a slowdown, it's an economic earthquake, and the aftershocks are hitting hardest in certain states where entire industries are collapsing, small towns are emptying out, and the middle class is being ripped apart in real time. Tonight, we're counting down the states where the American dream isn't just fading, it's being buried. Number 10. Colorado. Colorado once sold itself as the land of balance, work by day, hike the Rockies by evening, craft beer festivals on weekends. But in 2025, that image is crumbling under a brutal wave of layoffs. The state's unemployment rate is now brushing 5.7%, leaving over 180,000 residents scrambling for work. And the hit isn't just in one sector. Denver's once booming tech scene, hailed as Silicon Mountain, has seen dozens of startups fold, with giants like Google and Oracle quietly trimming satellite offices. Construction, which fueled Denver's endless skyline of cranes, has also slowed dramatically as interest rates choke new housing projects. Families who once banked on steady union jobs in construction or transportation are suddenly juggling $2,200 Denver rents, with unemployment checks averaging just $560 a week. The cost of living is vicious. Colorado home prices hover around $540,000, with 7% mortgage rates locking families into $3,700 payments. Grocery costs are soaring, with staples like eggs and milk running nearly 20% higher than the national average. And the outdoor lifestyle that was once a draw now feels like a luxury. Ski passes at Vail top $900, far beyond reach for laid-off families. Even rural Colorado, once dependent on agriculture, is suffering. Farmers are being crushed by water shortages and declining export demand, leaving entire small towns gasping for economic breath. Add in surging crime rates in Denver. Car thefts jumped 20% this year, and the picture becomes bleak. Migration has flipped. Colorado, once a top destination for Californians fleeing costs, is now watching its own residents pack for cheaper havens like Wyoming or New Mexico. The Rocky Mountain dream is fading fast, replaced with boarded-up businesses, foreclosure signs, and paychecks that collapse under the weight of bills. Number 9. Illinois. Illinois, long defined by Chicago's towering skyline and industrial backbone, is staring straight into an economic freefall. The state's unemployment rate is pushing 5.6%, which means over 300,000 workers are sidelined. Chicago, the city that once claimed to be recession-proof, is bleeding jobs across multiple industries. Finance layoffs have rocked major employers downtown, while manufacturing plants in Peoria and Rockford quietly shutter, leaving skilled workers without a path forward. The service sector isn't safe either. Hotels, restaurants, and retail have trimmed staff as tourism lags and crime scares off visitors. For the families caught in the middle, Illinois is a nightmare of expenses. The median home price statewide hovers near $290,000, which might sound affordable. But Illinois homeowners are hit with the highest property taxes in the nation after New Jersey, averaging nearly $5,800 annually. Renters in Chicago are hardly spared, with one-bedrooms now averaging $2,100 a month. Add utilities, groceries that routinely top $350 a week for a family, and $5.20 gas in the city, and survival becomes impossible without stable work. To make matters worse, Illinois is losing people faster than almost any state in America. In the past 3 years, more than 250,000 residents have fled for Indiana, Florida, and Texas, draining the tax base and leaving behind crumbling schools and empty storefronts. Infrastructure is another gut punch. Commuters deal daily with pothole-ridden roads, CTA transit breakdowns, and violent crime on trains that make even a simple commute feel dangerous. State finances, already drowning in pension debt, mean fewer resources to stabilize communities. The brutal truth? Illinois feels like a state abandoned. While politicians debate bailouts, everyday workers are left jobless, broke, and wondering if Chicago's bright lights are just a mask for economic collapse. Number 8. Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania, the land that fueled America's rise with coal and steel, is once again a symbol of decline in 2025. The unemployment rate sits above 5.4%, with nearly 280,000 Pennsylvanians jobless. And the losses aren't just in legacy industries. Philadelphia's hospitals and universities, long anchors of stability, are cutting staff as funding dries up. Pittsburgh's tech gamble, designed to pivot away from steel, is faltering as venture capital dries up, forcing robotics and AI firms to trim payrolls. Even logistics, a backbone of central Pennsylvania, is shrinking, with Amazon closing warehouses in Allentown and Carlisle. For families, the numbers are devastating. The median household income statewide is $72,000, but rents in Philly average $1,900 for a one-bedroom, while groceries hit $325 a week. Add in soaring heating costs. Natural gas bills jumped nearly 18% this winter, and middle-class budgets are stretched to the breaking point. Pennsylvania's infrastructure, already notorious, only deepens the pain. Philadelphia's subway system has seen violent crime spike, while small towns face shuttered schools as tax bases collapse. Property taxes in counties like Montgomery average $6,000 a year, piling on for homeowners already staring down 7% mortgages. The state is also losing its youth. More than 40,000 young workers have left in the last 2 years, chasing opportunities in the South and Midwest. That brain drain leaves behind aging populations, rising healthcare demands, and shrinking revenues. Meanwhile, opioid addiction and violent crime continue to surge in struggling areas like Kensington, compounding the despair. What was once the heart of American industry is now a cautionary tale. Warehouses closing, campuses downsizing, and families deciding whether to pay the mortgage or the grocery bill. Pennsylvania isn't just losing jobs, it's losing its future. Number 7. Arizona, Arizona, once hyped as America's fastest-growing state, is now crashing hard into economic reality. The unemployment rate is nearing 5.5%, sidelining more than 180,000 workers. Phoenix, which became the poster child for Sunbelt growth, is experiencing mass layoffs in construction, real estate, and tech. The housing bubble that fueled Arizona's boom is bursting. With mortgage rates above 7%, monthly payments on the $430,000 median home now top $3,000, out of reach for many as incomes stagnate. Developers are halting projects, and thousands of construction jobs are evaporating overnight. Tech companies that flock to Arizona for cheaper land and labor are scaling back, leaving expensive new office towers half empty. Families are trapped between unemployment and rising costs. Rents in Phoenix average $1,800 for a one-bedroom, while utilities, especially electricity, are skyrocketing. With record-breaking 115-degree summers, air conditioning bills regularly exceed $400 a month. Grocery bills are another hammer blow, climbing 12% year over year. Outside Phoenix, rural Arizona is struggling too. Mining towns are watching layoffs spread, while water shortages cripple agriculture. Farmers are battling drought so severe that entire fields are being abandoned, killing local economies. Insurance premiums are rising due to wildfire risk, pushing homeowners into crisis. And the state's much-hyped population boom has stalled. Thousands who moved during the pandemic are now leaving, unable to balance $70,000 salaries with $90,000 in annual living costs. Social cracks are showing. Homelessness in Phoenix is exploding. Encampments stretch for blocks downtown. Crime is rising in Tucson, where thefts and assaults have jumped 15%. The American dream that Arizona sold, a cheaper, sunnier life, is unraveling. Behind the palm trees and desert sunsets are families maxing out credit cards, selling cars, and wondering if they made a fatal mistake moving here. Number 6. North Carolina. North Carolina has long been marketed as the new frontier of opportunity, with booming cities like Charlotte and Raleigh drawing companies and workers from across the nation. But in 2025, the reality is far darker. The unemployment rate has surged to 5.3%, sidelining nearly 240,000 workers. Banking and finance, once Charlotte's pride, are under siege as layoffs ripple through major employers like Bank of America and Wells Fargo. The Research Triangle, once a hub of innovation, is watching tech and biotech startups collapse under the weight of high interest rates and venture capital dry spells. Manufacturing, too, is taking blows, with furniture and textile factories cutting shifts in towns like High Point and Greensboro. For families, the math doesn't work anymore. Median household income sits around $67,000, but rents in Charlotte are topping $1,800 a month, while Raleigh home prices average $440,000. With mortgage rates at 7%, that's nearly $3,200 a month. Add utilities, $300 grocery bills, and $4.10 gas, and families are drowning. Property taxes, while lower than New Jersey or Illinois, are climbing fast as local governments scramble to plug budget gaps. Even the education system is feeling it. Universities like UNC are raising tuition again, while public schools face teacher shortages as educators flee to higher-paying states. Crime is climbing in Charlotte, where car thefts have jumped 18% this year. Homeless encampments are spreading, especially in Durham, as laid-off workers can't keep up with costs. And the migration boom that once powered North Carolina is slowing. New arrivals are outnumbered by families leaving for cheaper Midwestern states, draining energy from the so-called New South. The brutal truth? North Carolina is discovering that growth built on cheap credit, corporate relocations, and endless construction isn't sustainable. When the jobs vanish, the shiny skyscrapers and suburban subdivisions don't mean much. Number 5. Georgia has long been pitched as the crown jewel of the South, a state where booming Atlanta tech hubs, sprawling film studios, and endless logistics jobs kept the economy humming. But in 2025, Georgia is unraveling at the seams. The unemployment rate has spiked to 5.4%, which means nearly 300,000 Georgians are without work. Atlanta, once called the Silicon Valley of the South, is seeing brutal tech layoffs. Entire floors of midtown office towers are sitting dark after fintech and SaaS companies trimmed staff by the thousands. The film industry, which pumped billions into the state with tax incentives, is faltering too, as studios cut productions and sound stages in Fayetteville stand half empty. Beyond Atlanta, things look grim. The Port of Savannah, one of the busiest in the country, is seeing cargo slowdowns, leaving dock workers and truckers scrambling for shifts. For families, the financial strain is unbearable. The median home price in Georgia is now $375,000, but in metro Atlanta, it's closer to $450,000. With interest rates still near 7%, that's a $3,100 mortgage on salaries that rarely crack $70,000. Rents in Atlanta average $1,850, while grocery bills push $320 a week, and gas in Georgia is back over $4 a gallon. Add in spiking insurance premiums due to storm risks, and working-class families are being crushed. Atlanta's crime wave adds another layer of despair. Violent crime has surged, forcing businesses to close early and pushing middle-class families out of once stable neighborhoods. Rural Georgia is bleeding population, with factories closing in towns like Macon and Albany, leaving boarded-up main streets behind. Even higher education, a pillar of the state, is under stress as enrollment drops at Georgia State and UGA, forcing tuition hikes. The reality? Georgia's promise of affordable opportunity has collapsed into layoffs, spiraling costs, and families barely holding on. Number 4, Ohio. The heartland state that once powered America with steel, rubber, and manufacturing muscle is slipping into another economic nightmare. The unemployment rate has surged past 5.5%, leaving more than 320,000 Ohioans jobless. Cleveland's healthcare giants are cutting staff, Columbus tech firms are laying off programmers, and Toledo's auto suppliers are seeing contracts dry up as Detroit automakers trim operations. The worst hit? Blue-collar families who once relied on 28-hour manufacturing jobs that are vanishing overnight. The result is devastating. Median household income in Ohio is only $66,000, but rents in Columbus are now $1,700 a month, while homes average $280,000 statewide. That might sound affordable compared to the coasts, but with mortgage rates over 7% and inflation chewing away at paychecks, Ohioans are stretched to the breaking point. Add in utilities, $250 heating bills in brutal winters, and $300 weekly grocery runs, and unemployment checks of $525 a week don't even touch the costs. Rural Ohio is collapsing too. Farmers are being hammered by global grain price volatility and skyrocketing fertilizer costs, forcing family farms into foreclosure. Meanwhile, opioid addiction continues to devastate communities, with overdose deaths still among the highest in the nation. Crime in Cleveland and Cincinnati is climbing, with carjackings and burglaries spreading into suburbs. Population decline adds another wound. Ohio has lost nearly 60,000 residents in the last 2 years, as young workers flee for cheaper, faster-growing states. Schools are closing, malls are ghost towns, and entire neighborhoods are riddled with foreclosures. Infrastructure is decaying too. Ohio spends billions on road repairs, yet highways remain cratered with potholes. The harsh truth? Ohio is sinking into a cycle of layoffs, depopulation, and despair, leaving once proud industrial cities looking more like relics of a forgotten America. Number 2. Massachusetts has long sold itself as the brain of America. Harvard, MIT, world-class hospitals, and a booming biotech scene. But in 2025, that reputation is cracking under economic pressure. The state's unemployment rate has surged to 5.6%, meaning more than 230,000 residents are jobless. And these aren't just low-wage losses. Biotech giants in Cambridge are cutting research teams as venture capital tightens, while hospitals in Boston, once thought untouchable, are slashing staff after record budget shortfalls. Even universities, the very backbone of the state, are trimming faculty and hiking tuition as enrollment declines. Families are left gasping under sky-high costs. The median home price in Massachusetts is now $590,000, but in Greater Boston, it's a punishing $725,000. At today's 7% mortgage rates, that's a monthly payment north of $5,000, and that's before taxes and insurance. Renters aren't safe either, with average one-bedroom apartments in Boston topping $3,200. Combine that with $400 a week grocery bills, some of the nation's highest childcare costs at $2,400 per month per child, and gas prices consistently over $4.30 a gallon, and even households earning six figures feel broke. Beyond costs, the social fabric is straining. Homelessness in Boston has surged, with encampments growing under highway overpasses. Crime is ticking up, particularly in urban transit corridors, while the MBTA subway system remains plagued by breakdowns and safety failures despite billions in bailouts. Small businesses are closing as workers and consumers flee to cheaper states like New Hampshire and Florida. The net result? Massachusetts is bleeding talent and families at the fastest pace in a decade. What was once the intellectual and medical hub of America is starting to look like an overpriced, hollowed-out shell, a place where only the ultra-rich can thrive, while everyone else sinks under layoffs, tuition hikes, and bills that never end. Number 1. New York. No state captures the collapse of America's job market more brutally than New York. The state has logged one of the highest unemployment spikes in 2025, sitting at 5.8%, translating to over 500,000 people sidelined. New York City, the financial capital of the world, is gutting its workforce. Wall Street banks are slashing thousands of positions, law firms are cutting junior associates, and even Broadway is going dark with entire productions canceled as tourism plunges. The tech crash has hollowed out Midtown, leaving glass towers 30% vacant, while small businesses, the bodegas, bars, and delis that once kept the city alive, are shuttering faster than they can be replaced. And upstate? It's not spared. Syracuse, Rochester, and Buffalo are seeing manufacturers and logistics firms close doors, hammering communities that never fully recovered from the last recession. For working families, New York is financial hell. The median rent in NYC is now over $4,300 for a one-bedroom, while the median statewide home price sits near $450,000. At 7% mortgage rates, families are on the hook for $3,200 monthly payments. Add to that 400-plus weekly grocery bills, the nation's highest property taxes in suburban counties, and a combined state and city tax rate topping 12.7%, and even middle-class salaries are meaningless. Survival means cutting back on everything, except bills. Public services offer little relief. The subway is plagued by crime and delays. Homelessness has skyrocketed, with tent cities stretching deep into boroughs. Businesses are leaving in droves, financial firms shifting jobs to Florida, manufacturers heading to Texas, even mom-and-pop shops moving across state lines. Since 2020, New York has lost over 400,000 residents, draining its tax base and leaving a shrinking workforce behind. The brutal reality? The Empire State is no longer an empire. It's the face of America's unraveling job market, where dreams end not with opportunity, but with eviction notices and pink slips. America's job market is collapsing faster than anyone expected. From coast to coast, the stories are the same. Factories shuttered, offices empty, families drowning under bills they can't pay. Unemployment may be reported at just over 6%, but the reality on the ground is far worse. Millions more are working part-time jobs that don't cover rent, or simply dropping out of the labor force altogether. Nearly half of all Americans now say they're living paycheck to paycheck, while consumer debt has exploded past $1.3 trillion in credit card balances alone, the highest in U.S. history. At the same time, inflation is eating every dollar. Groceries are up 12% year over year, housing costs are up 40% since 2019, and utilities are climbing in nearly every state. What you're seeing isn't just a few bad months. It's the unraveling of the middle class, the slow-motion destruction of the American dream. The states we just counted down aren't isolated disasters. They're a warning of what's coming everywhere. If you live in a state not on this list, don't get comfortable. Layoffs are spreading, bills are climbing, and the safety nets are breaking. For millions of families, the collapse is no longer a prediction. It's already here. The question now isn't whether America can avoid the storm. The question is whether you're prepared to survive it.